Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's program about Wolfden Resources' proposal to rezone more than 500 acres of land near Mount Chase, near Baxter State Park, for a metal mine, and to hear from Maine tribal representatives and a sporting camp owner about their concerns about this mining effort. We hope that all of you are safe and healthy during this COVID-19 pandemic. We would have loved to have been with you this evening in person, but we appreciate you joining us online instead. And in fact, if this event was in person tonight, it probably would have been canceled because of the snow. So probably a good thing this happened online this evening, but we're happy that you're here with us on Zoom. My name is Todd Martin. I'm the Grassroots Outreach Coordinator at the Natural Resources Council of Maine. NRCM is Maine's largest environmental advocacy organization, protecting and restoring Maine's environment now and for future generations. For more than 60 years, NRCM has harnessed the power of the law, science, and the voices of more than 25,000 members and supporters here in Maine and beyond. We have a staff of about 30, and our offices are located in Augusta, just steps from the State House. Before we get started with our program this evening, and before I turn it over to Nick Bennett, our staff scientist, for his presentation, just a couple of tips on the Zoom technology that we're using. I'm sure at this point in the pandemic, we're all pros with Zoom, but just a few tips. So this evening's program is being recorded, and tomorrow afternoon, you'll get an email from me with a link to watch this recording on YouTube, and we hope that you'll share it with your friends and family as well. Your video and your audio is disabled this evening by design. So you'll only be able to see and hear our panelists this evening. But if you have a question for any of our panelists, please type that question in the Q&A box, which you can find at the lower ribbon on your Zoom screen. We'll have plenty of time to get to questions at the end of our panel discussion. So I'm going to turn it over now to Nick Bennett. He's NRCM staff scientist to discuss Wolfden's mining proposal, and then we'll get to Dan Kusnierz from the Penobscot Indian Nation, Sherry Venno from the Holton Band of Maliseets, and Igor Sikorski, the owner of Bradford Camps in the North Maine Woods. So take it away, Nick.
Thank you, Todd. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this chilly evening. I'm just going to speak quite quickly here about the Wolfden proposal and try to orient everybody on where this proposal is, both in Maine and in the process right now. Next slide, Todd. So you can see sort of in the upper right of this map that I've showed here, it says Pickett Mountain Mine, and that's a little bit north of Patton and west of Baxter State, east of Baxter State Park and Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument. So this is a very beautiful part of the state and close to resources that we have protected for extremely good reasons. Next slide. This is a more detailed map of the project area, and you can see there are 3 water bodies above the area in red, which is the project area: Pleasant Lake, Mud Lake, and Grass Pond. These are heritage brook trout waters, which means that they have wild brook trout populations and that they haven't been stocked in the last 25 years. Grass Pond has never been stocked at all, and Pleasant and Mud Lake haven't been stocked since 1956. So these are spectacular fisheries. The lake that's just to the right of the project area is Pickett Mountain Pond. Those streams that's also a brook trout fishery, although not a heritage brook trout water, but the streams both above it and below it are brook trout waters. So it's pretty hard to imagine a worse place to put a mine in terms of being really close to outstanding brook trout waters. Next slide. This is Pickett Mountain Pond and Pickett Mountain in the background. So this isn't just a high value area for fisheries. It's also a really beautiful spot. It's not somewhere that we want to see a mine. Next slide. This is Pleasant Lake, again, a heritage brook trout water. The red arrow points to where Pickett Mountain would be. You can see Mount Chase and Mount Katahdin. So this is not far from either of those two landmarks. Mount Chase is also a beautiful spot to take a hike up. Everybody knows about Mount Katahdin. Next slide. This is a sunset from Mount Chase. And the two ponds you can see there are Upper and Lower Shin Pond, which are very important from a recreational standpoint and a tourism standpoint in the area. Lots of people use those ponds for recreation. Next slide. This is what we do not want to happen to these very valuable water bodies. This is acid mine drainage in Swift Gulch, Montana, which is near the Zortman-Landusky mine. The orange color that this water has is due to iron that's being leached out along with whatever other metals are in this water. It's not the iron that's necessarily toxic, although it does cause damage to trout and other visual predators because they can't see to catch their prey. But the other thing that the iron color indicates is that the water is acid. And that is the major risk of the type of mine that Wolfden is talking about putting in Maine. Maine tends to have ore bodies that are high in sulfur. And when that sulfur is exposed to oxygen and water, once it's no longer buried underground, that creates acid. And that is the cause of many of the problems with mines and why they are so destructive to fisheries, especially high quality cold water fisheries. Brook trout, salmon, landlocked salmon, those fish are extremely sensitive to changes in pH in the water, changes in acidity. Next slide. So as I said, and Todd said, this is a proposal by a company called Wolfden. It's a virtually unknown Canadian company. I think they have about a half dozen employees. They currently are not applying for a permit. They're applying for a rezoning of about 8,000. They've bought about 8,000 acres in Maine, and they're trying to rezone about 600 acres in order to build this zinc mine that they want to put in here. They have this very fancy looking website. They call this the highest grade undeveloped volcanic massive sulfide deposit in America. I don't know where their evidence comes from that. They are not forthcoming with information, but consultants that I've talked to about this don't think that that statement is true. There are a lot of other things that they haven't told people. And I'm going to show you what it would be like in the next couple of slides if we had a mining company that actually told the truth about their record. Next slide. So this is from an article, a recent article in the Bangor Daily News that Wolfden is not sharing information about. Wolfden's most recently available quarterly financial statements from September 2019 show the company incurring a net loss of 1.4 million and accumulating a deficit of $32 million. It also shows that for its USA subsidiary, which oversees the Pickett Mountain project, Wolfden's operating activities were at a loss of $580,000 for the last 6 months prior to the September 2019 statement. Next slide. This is from an older article in the Portland Press Herald. Wolfden is a mineral exploration company with interests in Manitoba and northern New Brunswick. Corporate filings show that the company has yet to move from exploration to actual mining at any of the sites. The most recent quarter report stated that Wolfden has lost more than $17 million since 2009, including more than $800,000 during the first 2 quarters of 2017. And next slide. This statement is from the application to the Land Use Planning Commission for the rezoning that Wolfden submitted on its own. And it said funding for the Pickett Mountain Mine project to date has been a combination of small equity raises and timber sales from the property. Wolfden's share price will be an important factor for its ability to fully finance the construction of the project. Wolfden continues to trade at a discount to many of its peers because investors have their doubts about Maine's willingness to issue mining permits. We anticipate that this trend will continue for the project until milestones like the rezoning have been achieved and the project is proceeding well through its baseline studies. Next slide. So I spent about 5 years fighting a proposal from J.D. Irving to mine a significantly larger site in Aroostook County called Bald Mountain. And I would guess that many of you watching this webinar remember that battle. The result of that battle was a mining law that has the strictest mining standards in the country. That law, we designed that law because we wanted, if there was going to be mining in Maine, that only companies with very deep pockets and a lot of experience who could handle the risks of the dangers of mining, we wanted only those types of companies to come to Maine. This company, Wolfden, is exactly the type of company that we are afraid of. And we were afraid of when we developed these, the mining law and the subsequent mining rules in 2017. Wolfden has no actual mining experience. They've never mined anywhere. They lose money hand over fist. They're not honest and forthcoming with information about their practices. And these are the types of companies, fly-by-night operations, that set up mines, have set up mines all over the country and all over the world. And then when metal prices drop or something goes wrong, they go bankrupt, leaving a big mess and require the taxpayers to bail them out and clean up their disasters. And often those cleanups require treatment in perpetuity. So this is not a company that we are happy about seeing in Maine. We're very concerned. We want to stop them from getting this rezoning. We don't want them to go on to the next step of applying for a DEP permit. And we'd like your help in stopping that. You can all weigh in with the Land Use Planning Commission at the email that's in this slide and tell them to please not allow the rezoning to proceed. We don't know yet when there'll be a public hearing on the rezoning proposal, but we expect it'll be sometime in the next couple of months. And we expect it'll be virtual, so it will be easy for people to participate in. And we would urge you all to come and testify at that public hearing and testify against the rezoning going forward. We will keep you posted on all of that information on our website, and we'll let you know when that hearing is coming up. And with that, I'll stop and pass things on to Sherry Venno. Looks like I'm passing things on to Dan Kusnierz, sorry.
Thank you for participating. My name is Dan Kusnierz, and I'm the Water Resources Program Manager for the Penobscot Indian Nation. Next slide, please. Just to give you an overview, the Penobscot Nation has a variety of different types of land holdings throughout Maine. The Penobscot River, beginning in Old Town, and all islands and the river upstream from there are Penobscot Reservation. And then the tribe also has trust lands and fee lands that are kind of distributed across the state. The tribe relies upon these waters and lands for carrying out sustenance, fishing and hunting practices, for collecting food, for gathering medicines, and carrying out traditional cultural lifeways. Next slide. So this map here shows the location of the proposed Wolfden mine site in relation to Penobscot Indian Nation lands and waters. The proposed Wolfden site is located near and threatens several tracts of significant conservation lands here in Maine, which Nick talked about before. It's 15 miles from Penobscot Nation's T6R8 trust land, Grand Lake Matawamkeg, and Mountain Catcher Pond. It's very close to Baxter State Park and Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument. And it threatens the Matawamkeg River and ultimately the Penobscot River. Next. I'm going to speak now a little bit about the Matawamkeg River system. This area here, the west branch of the Matawamkeg, is where the proposed mining site is located, and it is in the headwaters of the west branch of the Matawamkeg River. These waters are classified under Maine's law as water quality class A, which are very high quality waters. They're designated as critical habitat for endangered species, sea runs Atlantic salmon. They are key to the success of the Penobscot River Restoration Project for Atlantic salmon and other sea run and anadromous fish species that are part of that project. And as Nick talked about, they're also state heritage wild brook habitat waters. The other significant thing about a lot of these waters is they do not contain non-native fish species. So, they're really important wild fisheries. Next slide. So for those that might not be familiar, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of the Penobscot River Restoration Project. It's one of the largest restoration projects in North America and perhaps the world. Through partnerships and long negotiations with many, many partners, including NRCM and the Penobscot Nation. It involved the removal of 2 dams on the main stem of the Penobscot River, engineering a bypass channel around a 3rd dam, improving fish passage at multiple locations, including a lot of the tributaries, all the while generating the same amount or perhaps even more power than what was previously generated. Next slide. This slide here shows the improvements in providing access for several anadromous fish species into their historic spawning areas. Over 1,000 miles of improved access to spawning areas has occurred. And if you look, so the diagram on the left showed before the project and where the access was to that important habitat. And on the right-hand side, you see after the removal of those dams and restoration efforts, the restored use of those water bodies. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the Matawamkeg River watershed. So those are important for, as I mentioned before, for salmon, for shad, alewife, blueback herring, and eels. Next slide. The next area I'd like to talk to you about is the tribe's trust land at T6R8. This here is a photograph of Grand Lake Matawamkeg, which is bordered on the west by Baxter State Park and on the east and northern regions by Penobscot Nation trust lands. As you can see from this photo, it's a very special place. If you look in the kind of on the right in the background, that mountain with a steep drop off, that's Horse Mountain, which is located in Baxter State Park. Next slide. This water body and these lands by the tribe that the tribe owns are very important for cold water lake fishery. They contain brook trout, landlocked salmon, cusk, togue, whitefish, and other deep cold water species. The tribe relies upon these lands and waters as within this trust land, as well as the Penobscot Reservation for carrying out things such as fishing for sustenance during the summertime, the wintertime. These photos here are of fish that were caught from Grand Lake Matawamkeg, for harvesting moose and deer, and then other species that are culturally very important to the tribe, such as bald eagles. Next picture, our next slide. This slide here just shows some of the other ways that the lands are used. These are pictures of birchbark canoe making. So the tribe goes to these places to gather all the materials that are needed for building traditional birchbark canoes, which are an important part of the tribe's heritage. They also gather materials for making various baskets. Next slide. And also for gathering foods such as fiddlehead ferns. In the middle, there's a picture of a traditional Penobscot spear used for catching fish. And then on the right is a picture of a lion's mane mushroom. So the tribe uses these areas for collecting these important foods, and also uses these areas for important ceremonial purposes. Next slide. Here are some more photographs of the Matawamkeg area. On the left-hand side is looking towards the proposed site from the top of Horse Mountain. And on the bottom left-hand side is a photograph of Mountain Catcher Pond, which is a pond that is contained within Penobscot Trust lands, and also Baxter State Park, which is an important wild brook trout fishery. And in the bottom right-hand side is a picture of the East Branch of the Penobscot River, which flows out of Matawamkeg and is a very, very important water body for the restoration of sea-run Atlantic salmon. There's a lot of projects underway for releasing salmon to help restore them to those places, as well as the West Branch of the Matawamkeg River. Next slide. So I had I guess the benefit of being able to, while on travel one time, being able to go see an example of metallic mining gone bad. And there are many, many examples all through North America of tribes who have been just devastated by, their resources have been devastated by catastrophic mining practices. So this here is the Bunker Hill site in Idaho. It destroyed over 166 river miles. There are waste piles, waste rock, soil, sediment, groundwater, surface water contamination with heavy metals such as lead. This continues downstream throughout the floodplain. It's required them to do re-engineering of stream channels, removal of tailings and materials, and then replacing these huge mountains full of material with clean material, creating huge impoundments and wastewater treatment facilities. So far, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent to try to remediate this area. Cleanup began in 1983, and it's estimated that will continue for many decades to come. And as I mentioned before, in this specific example, it caused the destruction of many of the resources that are relied upon by Coeur d'Alene tribal members. Next slide. Here are just some photos of that site. The one on the left-hand side shows a stream channel that was completely devastated and had to be re-engineered. And the slide in the middle shows some of the tailing areas and just leftover waste from the site. Some of these slides got cut off a little bit. We reformatted them, but the middle one on the right is an area that they had to do, basically dig up the stream channel to remove material and attempt to clean it and re-engineer it. In the bottom right-hand corner is an example of a wastewater treatment facility that they had to develop, which then goes into what looks like a lake, which is an impounded area that contains the waste from this site that needs to be cleaned. Next slide. So some of the specific current concerns that the Penobscot Nation has is that we believe that this mine threatens tribal members' use of their natural resources for carrying out sustenance practices for their well-being and for their culture. It threatens the restoration of Atlantic salmon and other sea-run fish species that are important to the tribe and to the Penobscot watershed. It threatens the water quality of the Matawamkeg and Penobscot watershed, which are right now very high quality. Potential groundwater impacts. The Matawamkeg area is not in the watershed of the proposed site, but once you get in there and start pounding away and drilling, we have a lot of concerns about what will happen to the groundwater, which way it will flow and where it will go to, and that it could ultimately end up into the Matawamkeg, into Matawamkeg. We think that it has the potential for causing a significant change in the natural and wild character of the area. And Wolfden has failed to recognize in their application many of the important resources that are located in those areas. They have indicated that some of those ponds are of marginal quality, that they're very shallow and don't have a lot of significant species. They have not identified them as I've described and as Nick described. And they haven't demonstrated how they're going to protect those. They just say they're going to put in state-of-the-art equipment to do a really great job of protecting water quality, but they don't demonstrate how that's going to happen. They're just making statements without providing any kind of support. We also think that Wolfden has failed to demonstrate that they have the capacity for carrying out this project. And we really do not want to be left with the legacy of a mining catastrophe like those that have plagued other places in Indian country. Next slide. And here's my contact information if you have any questions or want to do any follow-up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad I'm here. I'm looking forward to sharing the concerns that the Wolfden Band of Maliseet Indians has with regard to this mine. I will try not to repeat what has gone on before. I think this is a little bit of a different story, and I hope I will be able to communicate just how concerned we are about Wolfden's proposal. So I have a general natural resources background, but despite that, I was hired by the Wolfden Band of Maliseet Indians as an environmental planner in 1993. So for 27 years, I've been working at the direction of the tribe to achieve the goals and objectives and the vision that they have established. They began working on environmental protection, natural resources protection before they hired me. Next slide, please. They've been working for 30 years on the Magtaquack River, which is a headwaters of the larger homeland and the location of their trust and fee land. And they have their vision is twofold, although these are sort of a distillation of their vision. They want to see salmon spawning in the Magtaquack and eagles nesting on their land. These are culturally very significant species, eagles in particular, and salmon are not only important for sustenance, but they are provided in traditional feasts where ceremony is undertaken. Next slide, please. So, as I said, we have two large goals, but really the Wolfden Band of Maliseet Indians, they're a riverine tribe, and they use all the resources, and they care for and stewards of all the resources of the river and the surrounding watershed. Here's just a collage of what I'm talking about here. Next slide, please. but the river that they work on is a much larger area than the trust land that they occupy in that river. So we spend a lot of time, like the Penobscot, working on the entire watershed, because without protecting the entire watershed, we will not enjoy the quality of water that we need just flowing through our own limited land resources. There's a picture of the Magtaquack, and Matawamkeg, people of the Magtaquack River, is the name, Maliseet name of the band, this Houlton Band of Maliseet. And Magtaquack, it's an anglicized version of the Maliseet word, and it means rocky at its mouth. Next slide, please. So while we have the Houlton Band of Maliseet Indians is located in the Magtaquack watershed, the Maliseet Nation writ large has traditional homeland. They're still living in their homeland of the St. John Holistic, and the Maliseet Nation writ large. There's the Houlton Band is the only community on the U.S. side. There are 6 other communities and nations on the Canadian side in New Brunswick, and 1 in Quebec. And they are the people of the beautiful flowing river, or Wolastoqiyik. So they are truly a riverine tribe, just as the Penobscots are, and their relationship to the river is an integral part of them. It's a key to their culture, their traditions, their identity. And when I understood the vision that they were looking to achieve, restoring salmon in the Magtaquack, I knew we were in for a long haul, because we are on the sort of, I don't know if I want to say the wrong side of the border, but the other side of the border from the barrier that keeps salmon from reaching the Magtaquack, and that is the Magtaquack Dam, and that is a very large sort of Columbia River, Western River sized dam with no real fish passage. They trap and truck a very limited number of fish, and just a couple of species over the dam. So after the dam, there's a big, huge head pond. So it's a big, huge vision. And we've had to think big from the outset. While we worked on our little watershed, improving water quality and aquatic habitat, working with our local partners, we've been trying to build a larger partnership and create greater ties, in particular with our Maliseet First Nation relatives, but with the federal government, their federal government in Canada. Next slide, please. And as we began working on our river and on the vision of restoring salmon, we began to understand, specifically through the efforts of listing salmon, I think it was a long time ago, 20 years ago, I think now, that marine survival is a huge part of why salmon are not thriving, that they're not doing well in the marine environment. This is the Gulf of Maine watershed. These are the watersheds that feed the Gulf of Maine. This is a very good approximation of Wabanaki territory, which includes Maliseet and Penobscot and Passamaquoddy and Mi'kmaq and Abenaki. You just have to expand it a little further fully into the Maritimes of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and into Vermont. So this is the Dawnland. This is the homeland. This is how big we think when we think about restoring Atlantic salmon. Next slide, please. So this is the context for how we have been responding or thinking about mining ever since we understood it might be a threat. When I first started working for the tribe, the gold mine was a rumor. I honestly thought it was a rumor. When I first started working for the tribe, I thought, there can't be a gold mine in Aroostook County. But I was wrong, obviously. And we spent, because it's on the edge of the two big watersheds, the Fish River and the Aroostook, we were really concerned. The Aroostook River is one of the two premier salmon habitats in the Willistic St. John. The other one is on the Canadian side. It's called the Tobic, and there is a Tobic First Nation, Maliseet First Nation, and they are trying very hard to restore salmon in their watershed. These are the two headwater, high quality salmon spawning streams in the Willistic St. John. And we are above, the Aroostook is above 2 dams. The Matawamkeg, we just have the one big one, but that's the biggest challenge. So we are working, we look at all kinds of threats to our vision of restoring salmon. When I first started working for the tribe, they set me to reviewing a landfill, a proposed landfill, because they saw it as a threat to water quality. We spent the 5 years, the full 5 years, looking at the new rules that were evolving at the same time around the proposal of Bald Mountain that Nick talked about. We invested a lot of time because we were very concerned. Next slide, please. So and we rely on NRCM and Nick to keep us informed of some of these new developments. The article that I've copied in here talks about this proposed mine that Wolfden's putting out there as a test of Maine's new mining line. We understand that Wolfden doesn't want to follow the Land Use Planning Commission's rules. They are asking for a waiver, or they have asked for a waiver. I don't think they are likely to get it, but they are, as Nick said, not good actors. And so we want to make sure that all the effort we put into protecting, helping to develop these protective mining laws are honored. We think they will be, but we feel constant vigilance is very important. That Bald Mountain is still there. All the copper and gold deposits are still there. It's really important that we don't contaminate our headwaters, where salmon spawn, as Dan indicated. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide, and I know it's getting late here. So we have a small land base. Our village is very, it's the closest tribal community to the proposed mountain. And even though it's not in our watershed, we are still concerned about its potential impact on our ability to hunt and gather in the area, particularly recreate in Katahdin woods and waters, and just generally protect the Gulf of Maine watershed, the Gulf of Maine, and the North Atlantic. Thank you.
Hello. I guess I'm on.
Yep, we can hear you, Igor. You're all set to go.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hi, everybody. I think my video is working, or it will. Anyways, so my name is Igor Sikorski. With my wife, Karen, we own and operate the Bradford camps, which is up in that area in northern Maine. This is a picture of Munsungan Lake. The camps are there on the right, and I'm speaking on behalf of all the guests that come up to Bradford camps, but really everybody who comes up from Maine, southern Maine, wherever, comes up from all around the country, all around New England, all around the world, to get a piece of the North Maine woods. And I see this project as something greater than Pickett Mountain. As bad as it is for Pickett Mountain, it's a bigger story for me. But so what we do at Bradford Camps, we have an old set of camps that's been in operation for 130 years, and we are the 5th owners. Like I said, it's on Munsungan Lake. It's a very beautiful setting, landlocked salmon, lake trout, brook trout, heritage water. It's never been stocked. It's 1,500 acres, and we're just surrounded by water. Exact Pickett Mountain is where we live. So this is a picture of Will Atkins. He's like 1900 or so, and he was a taxidermist, as well as running the camps. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so that, anyway, good enough. This is Will Atkins, and back in 1900, I mean, that's before the Wright brothers flew. So you had to get there by canoeing up and down the Aroostook River, and we're at the upper reaches of the Aroostook River. And I don't know if my video is working. I mean, nobody needs to see.
Yep, your video is working and your audio is working.
So the next slide, please. I'm sorry, I have to call for the slides. That's what I have to do. So this is my float plane, but of interest to me is, like, if you just go back and forth, it's the same view in 2020, go back one and then forward. It has not changed in 130 years. And hey, might as well say, several thousand years. We're in the middle of the North Maine woods. There's commercial harvesting going on. There's all kinds of sustainable management of, fishing and hunting and enjoying the woods, and the great practices of commercial harvesting. And so that they do a very good job, in my estimation, after being there for 25 years. Yes. Okay. So next slide. A little close up of the far shore that we look at. And this is like what you see when you go to the North Maine woods, wherever you are. You're on Pickett Pond in the fall. It looks like this. You're on Munsungan Lake. You're on any of the lakes around us. It's just exquisite. And I'm talking about, like, well, the Great North Woods is 10 million acres all the way through to Vermont, but just sort of the, loosely termed North Maine Woods area from Katahdin to the northern border to the western border. That's like 4 million acres. And the next slide. And it all looks like this. My plane can carry 4 hours of fuel, and I can burn 3.5 hours of it flying over land like this. And this is what it looks like up there. It's the other Maine. It's not the coast. It's not the lobsters. And it is a jewel. And that's what we're talking about, in my mind, when we're talking about the Pickett Mountain project. Next slide. I mean, it's the beauty of the North Maine woods is around every corner. And it's like I said, we lived there for 25 years. We've lived there long enough to see trees cut down and forests regrowing there. And it all is in a fairly healthy sense of harmony, in my mind. The next slide. The North Maine woods, roughly termed, again, when I'm thinking, this is a real rough sketch. This is what I'm talking about. It's the headwaters of the Penobscot River, which is what this Pickett mine thing drains into. It's the headwaters of the Aroostook River. It's the headwaters of the Allagash and the St. John. It's the headwaters, indeed, even of part of the Kennebec River. So this area up here generates the watershed of nearly half of the water, fresh water flowing out of Maine. And they, this project wants to be right at the beginning reaches of the Penobscot River. My problem and my concern with the project is that Land Use Planning Commission, LUPC, they have to receive these permits. Well, as poorly as the permit request is being done, if somehow LUP says, okay, we will rezone, not permit, it's rezone, we will rezone this 800 acre project or 8,000 acre project, we'll rezone it for you. That's a leapfrog permit or rezoning creep that could affect my headwaters of the Aroostook River if somebody decided they wanted to do that. LUPC needs to hear from Mainers that they're concerned about. You can't just rezone with no plan to allow this. And this is the area at stake, all the headwaters of all those, and LUPC needs our help. So the next slide. This is Katahdin. It's 25 miles away from the project. I'm 30 miles away from the project. I'm way upstream. I'm on the Aroostook River. I'm higher than the project. Anything bad happens on Pickett Mountain, I'm not going to be able to smell it. But I'm concerned that this would create bad precedent. Next slide. There's just a couple of fishing shots. I employ a bunch of people to run the lodge. I employ a bunch of guides, and there are, literally hundreds of people coming from away, spending numerous days with us, spending time, spending money. And I'm just little Bradford camps. There are plenty of operations like me. They're already hiring people. They're already, doing a great job of creating an economy for Northern Maine. I don't buy the jobs issue. It's not worth it on my mind. The next slide. And this, mismatch. This is just a great shot. I did a little flying last fall, a little winter shot. And come up and fly with me. If you want to see the project, I'll take you for a ride. If you really need to be convinced, I'm glad to. And you'll be convinced. Next slide, please. There's another fish that was released. Both these fish you've seen were released, but the joy created by people. And these are wild fish. They're the very delicate fish of brook trout and landlocked salmon. They have a very, very low tolerance for, dirty water. Next slide. For 25 years, that's long enough really for 3 generations. And we're seeing that in our thing. People, we are just providing the place where people can fulfill their needs, and they're going to keep coming. And it's not just the fish, it's the whole environment. It's not driving by in mind and hearing stories of mining problems. We need to gather up our forces on this one to make it clear that this is not a good idea. Next slide, please. So these guys, that fish wasn't released, sorry. But, they're going to remember that for a long time. And they're going to bring their kids. And we need to protect this resource. And, I guess, next slide is just this is somebody who's been coming to Bradford camp since she was in diapers. This is the next slide. Yeah, next slide, please. And she's worked for us actually for a number of years. She was a little tiny toddler, and then just a few years ago, she worked for us for a bunch of years. And she's now off doing geology study in Western Maine and Western United States. But her heart is in the game for taking care of the environment, and she's doing it over there. But this is a person that, Bradford camps and the North Maine woods is partly responsible for. I kind of want to just mention and make it clear, people may think of mining as, somebody putting the helmet on with the light bulb on the helmet and everything, going down there and doing honest day's work and, trying to stay clean. This type of mining is, tearing a mountain apart and crushing the rock and washing it with really bad chemicals it's very fluid and very liquid. And that's that. And once you knock a rock open, that's when that interior of that rock gets open to the environment and can get washed out, and those acids can get into the soil. So it's not what you think it is. Just a little bit of research to see how they get their gold and copper and all that stuff it will frighten you. And so next slide, please. And this is my last slide. This is just a bid to get you people who are interested. I assume most of the people listening tonight are, ready to do something. And the do something for me and for us is get a hold of Land Use Planning Commission, get a hold of Natural Resources Council of Maine. They just are a wonderful group. And I speak, for myself at Monsungan Lake, but also all the sporting camp owners, all the people that love it up there, and the pilots that fly around up there. And we need you. And thank you for listening. And thanks for the opportunity, Todd.
Great, thanks very much, Igor. And Nick and Dan and Sherry, if you can come back here on the screen, turn your videos back on, that would be great. We're running a little bit over time here. I really appreciate the folks sticking on. We've got about 15 minutes or so for questions. And again, if you have a question for any of our panelists, please type that question in the Q&A box. So just looking through some of the questions we have here. Nick, I'm going to start this first question over to you. It's from Shri Verrill. Question is, I think that federal law, which gives precedence to the sustenance and subsistence hunting and fishing, is protected by treaty, would supersede any state legislation. Maybe Dan or Sherry could answer that question. Does federal law sort of supersede kind of the state mining regulations? And Dan and Sherry, you're both on mute. Okay, good.
Okay, I could sort of start that answer, and that is the Maine Indian Claims Settlement Act is the controlling federal act in the state. So that is something we deal with on an ongoing basis. There is a federal trust responsibility, but there are limited tools. The federal agencies, EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, they have, but mostly EPA, they have limited tools to protect our concerns, to protect our resources. We're sort of in the same boat as the folks in Alaska that are subject to the Pebble Mine. That took a Herculean effort by EPA, and I guess ultimately by the last administration to shut that down. It was not something that was protected by treaty.
And I would just throw in that the federal government has some authority over federal lands. They have very little authority over private lands in Maine. Mining is generally, when it's not happening on federal lands, left to states to regulate. And federal mining law is notoriously weak. We still have the 1870 mining law on the books in the United States. And the 1870 mining law basically says, put a mine wherever you want to put a mine, and we'll help you. And so that I think that federal protections for tribes would not help in this case. That doesn't mean that tribal members couldn't sue and think of a smart way to bring the federal government in that I'm not thinking about right now. But I spent a lot of time on the phone with EPA over the Bald Mountain fight, and we were on our own there. So.
Dan, I want to pitch this next question over to you if you want to take yourself off mute. Question is from Robin Hadlock Seeley. Question is, would Wolfden be required to consult with the Penobscot Indian Nation on this project? Have you, have representative from Wolfden reached out to you, or do you have any plans in the future to consult with them?
To my knowledge, they have not reached out to the tribe at all. I'm not familiar enough. Mining is a new issue for us. I mean, this is our first involvement with a potential mining operation that threatens tribal resources. So I'm not aware of anything that would require them to consult with us. I mean, we certainly would be involved. I mean, we would make sure we were involved and provide comments and such, but I'm not aware of any consultation requirement.
Great. Nick, I'm going to pitch this next question over to you. It comes from Ernie Wright. Question is there a timeline for approval or disapproval with the Land Use Planning Commission rezoning in the state of Maine? Kind of what's the timeline? What's the timeline of this project moving forward?
Well, that is a good question. And the answer is we don't know. I was expecting that the Land Use Planning Commission would publish something on its website about this at the end of last month, and they have not done so. Wolfden has been very slow to answer their questions, and maybe they're not getting the answers that they want. On the other hand, LUPC could publish something tomorrow. What's likely to happen next is that LUPC will say that it's completed its review, and then they would file notice of intervention. So it would give parties the opportunity to intervene. And then there would be at some point scheduling of a hearing. I would guess that the hearing, which will be a good opportunity for everybody to weigh in, will happen in the next 3 or 4 months, but it's hard. It's really hard to know. And we might find out that any day, but as of today, we don't know.
Great. And Nick, maybe just a follow-up question. This is another question from Joshua Reut, sort of about the process for rezoning in the unorganized territories and what the criteria that the LUPC is considering for this rezoning, and the credentials of LUPC commissioners. What are the major considerations with this rezoning application?
So with all rezoning applications, it's the task of the commission to decide whether or not the rezoning is consistent with the land use plan, the comprehensive land use plan, sometimes called the CLUP, that governs the unorganized territories. They also have to decide whether the proposal fits harmoniously into the environment. They, in the case of the subdistrict that's used for mining, there's a requirement that the development be, quote, well planned, unquote. And that is something that the LUPC staff who look at this issue and gather information for the commissioners to eventually vote on have had quite a few hiccups over, because Wolfden has no money to build $1 billion investment, which is about what this mine would cost, they say. They have no money at all, essentially, and there's no plan to get there. And so the staff at LUPC have quite rightly hung up on what's your financial plan? What's your ability to back a project like this financially? And they haven't gotten satisfactory answers to this. Another criterion is that it should not be damaging to natural resources in the area. Wolfden has made a claim that they can discharge their wastewater at contamination levels equivalent to natural background groundwater. There isn't a hard rock mine anywhere in the world that can do that, not one. And so that claim on their part is severely suspect, and LUPC has questioned them for an example. We've asked them for an example. We've gotten nothing. LUPC has asked them for specs on the equipment that they plan to use to be able to meet those kind of extremely clean discharge levels. They've gotten nothing. So I think in a lot of ways, Wolfden has not done themselves any favors in this process. But those are some of the criteria that will be important going forward.
Great. I'm seeing a lot of questions in here about the public process moving forward and how folks can be involved in denying Wolfden this rezoning application. And I'm just happy to answer it quickly. So what you can do right now is submit a comment to the Land Use Planning Commission. Public comments are being accepted on Wolfden's rezoning application. And tomorrow you'll get an email from me, again, with the recording of this webinar, but I'll also share the email address where you can send your comments into. That's the best thing you can be doing right now. Also submitting letters to the editor, to the Bangor Daily News, the Pioneer Times, the county newspaper especially, stating, folks who live in the area, stating your concern. That's also would be much appreciated. And as Nick said, there will be a public hearing in front of the Land Use Planning Commission. It hasn't been scheduled yet, but of course that hearing will be online and virtual. So we're hoping that dozens of folks will tune in and testify at that hearing. But again, hasn't been scheduled yet, but that's a great opportunity for the public to weigh in. So I guess another question here is, and Nick, maybe you can answer this one. So in the case, if Wolfden got a rezoning from the LUPC, what would happen next? Would they be able to start operating their mine, or is there another process they'd have to go through?
No, they would not be able to start operating their mine. This is actually, relatively speaking, this is a low hurdle for Wolfden to get over compared to the process that comes next, because the next process would be actually applying for a permit from DEP. And they need, just for starters, they need years of background groundwater sampling, for example, surface water sampling, years of data, and they don't have any of those data at this point. They need to demonstrate that they have the financial wherewithal to cover a worst case environmental disaster occurring from the mine. They have no money at this point. So, they can't meet those criteria, but we don't want this to get that far. The criteria and standards in the land use that govern the Land Use Planning Commission make it clear that development needs to be well-planned development. And to us, that means development with a company that knows what it's doing and has the financial wherewithal to make sure that it does it right. Wolfden doesn't know what it's doing, and it doesn't have the financial wherewithal, and it should not get this rezoning. And we feel that that is very important.
Great. Well, we are over time. We want to be respectful of your time and our speakers' time as well. So just want to extend my thanks again to Nick and Dan and Sherry and Igor for speaking this evening. And thanks to the 150 or so people who tuned in tonight.